Hey, what's going on, everyone? I don't know if you can see this, but the street lights are on, and that is badass because that means it's fall. Anyways, hey, in this video, I wanted to talk about Howard Bloom and his book, The Lucifer Principle. Recommend that every veteran read it, especially before you get out, because it'll just give you an insight into what you're about to go through. So in one of my shorts, I mentioned the sponge and how you can take a sponge and you can throw it in a blender and blend it up. And if you let the cup sit, the sponge will reconstitute into itself. And that's because a sponge is a group of individual organisms, and they work together to make the sponge. Now, if you take one of those cells and you hold it away from the group, it's going to die. And essentially, that's what Howard Bloom talks about in his book about how species survive is through groups. And what's underlining that group is the pecking order, and that is your position in that group. So everybody knows there's a hierarchy of needs that every human being needs to survive. And Howard Bloom theorizes in his book that pecking order should be added to that list, essentially. And what that means is that in a group of, of humans, there needs to be an order for that group, a hierarchy. So if you have a group of friends, who's the leader in that group and who's the one that gets picked on the most? That's your hierarchy, right? In the military, it's very apparent what the hierarchy is because it goes by rank. And then you have your unofficial leadership who people of rank turn to get advice and so forth. But there's a pecking order, and you know what your status is in that pecking order. Maslow, he is the one that said if there's a human that doesn't have one of these needs, then they're not going to survive. And Howard Bloom adding this pecking order to it is essentially saying if you don't know your place in the pecking order, you're in a bad spot. As you're getting out of the military, you're losing your place in the pecking order. Now, successful veterans that get out and they go straight into a good job, they slide in right at about the same, place on the pecking order as they were when they were in the military. Those guys do pretty well when they get out because, they're not losing their place. They're going into a new group, yes, but in that group, they're at somewhat the same status level as they were, or they bump down a couple pegs, but that's not a big deal because they know that they have a place in that pecking order. Those of us that get out, to include myself, if you don't slide into an organization where you're at the same kind of level, you're starting over at the bottom, which is fine. You're still in a pecking order, but it's more of a struggle, right? Because now you're at the bottom, you got to grind your way back to the top. You're starting in a new culture, new job, learning new skills, the works, right? Those of us that get out that don't go into a job right away, they just lose their place in the pecking order. Their friends stop talking to them because they're no longer in the military and in the army goes rolling along. They have nothing now. They're essentially that cell that got separated from the sponge and they're just left alone. Now you're not in a pecking order at all. And so that's a big struggle. A lot of people that retire from jobs that they've been in for a very long time have the same struggle because they were at the top of the pecking order and now they're nothing, right? This isn't to say that Howard Bloom is correct, but it's important to understand that concept of the pecking order because it'll help you kind of determine a path forward, at least from my point of view. The point of me making this video is just so that you guys understand a different way of thinking and why you might be struggling. Have you lost your place? Are you looking for a new place? This is not to say that you're some king shit that needs to be fed grapes by a servant or whatever. This is just to say that, according to Howard Bloom, this is his theory, there's a hierarchy of needs that the pecking order is a part of. And if you lose your place in that pecking order, now you're in a world of hurt. You have to quickly find, your way back into some sort of group at the same kind of status. So anyways, just my thoughts on the matter. Hope you guys are good. Like, subscribe. Talk to you later.